Yes, Daddy. You know, it's like... All right. We're just starting with Warwick snoring in the background.
He's the mascot.
Apologies for the audio. It's probably not the best, but we'll work on that. Jodi, welcome.
Thanks. Welcome.
I say welcome as in this isn't your podcast. This is both of our podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
So very excited to start this morning.
Very exciting. We've had a little bit of 20-ish minutes of sorting it out and
Just
laughing about...
actually, arguably funnier than what we would probably be talking about in this podcast.
Yeah, it's completely unrelated. We'll dive into that more maybe another time.
I have saved a clip. I will say it's mostly about dental dams, for those of you who do know about that. But yeah, speaking of teenage education, the sort of intro to food for you, where did that...
So... I want to ask you a question first.
Yeah?
What's the situation? Because obviously, as your accent says, you're not from these parts.
No, I've spent most of my life in Texas. The United States, for those of you who are just geographically uneducated.
Yeah, and our relationship is like, it's formed off the back of lockdown as well, isn't it? Because luckily for you, you arrived here. We're in 2024 now. And you arrived here the week or so before lockdown 2020?
Yeah, I was supposed to get married like the 26th, and I landed on the 24th. I think I landed on a Tuesday, and Boris locked the country down on a Thursday. So it was very quick. And then I was like locked in with you all. I had no choice. It was like, well, you get along with them.
Stuck with us. Because you then married my cousin, a lovely, lovely Megan.
Yes, lovely Megan. She's fantastic. Hasn't cooked a day since we've been married, which is fine.
I don't think she knows what food is.
She doesn't. I've educated her. She wasn't great with veg, albeit she grew up with mostly boiled veg, so I can't blame her.
Up the Britain.
And then she was just a complete infant when it came to spice, so... She actively likes Cholula and Sriracha, so it's good. I'm working, building her up. I, on the other hand, cover everything in chilies.
You do.
I just, I post quite a bit on my Instagram of, food and stuff. And, food and stuff. There we go. Already said the name of the podcast.
Food and that.
Oh, food and that. God damn it. That's
Close.
Not great. First podcast, guys. I'll learn the name.
Yeah.
But I'll take a picture of hers is usually the one that I post. Because I make it all nice and everything and pretty. And then... I'll have to do it next time, but I'll take a picture of mine, and mine's just like what Megan and I call a garbage bowl of I just basically take all the ingredients on the cutting board and just scrape it into a bowl covered in chilies, bit of mayo, some ground pepper.
Yeah, yours is just a bowl of fire.
Yeah, basically.
With some ingredients underneath.
Which is hilarious, because I used to be absolutely garbage at spice. I used to hate it. I used to think black pepper was spicy. And then my brother, Connor, was addicted. Sriracha like it was ketchup. And then eventually I started getting into it. And it is addicting.
It's funny you say that because me and Andy, my partner, he can handle spice. We like spice for flavour. I'm an absolute wimp when it comes to spicy food. But I saw a post recently and it was this guy talking about how his wife was really, really against spice. And then over time he was basically microdosing her spice into her dishes. And... eventually, over time, she grew quite a good tolerance to it. And then they went out to eat. She ordered something and it was too hot for him. So her tolerance had actually surpassed his at that point.
Oh my
and Andy
God.
said he thinks that's what I've done. Because early on in my pregnancy, I was obsessed with the spicy pickles, that you get from the takeaway. If you have a kebab. And you get that weird, witch's finger looking pickles.
Oh, yeah. The spiced gherkins.
Yeah, so I would eat them by the jar and then would eat really spicy stuff throughout my pregnancy. And then obviously after pregnancy I was that's a bit too much. But then I've slowly regained my spice tolerance. And last night we had something and I was like, oh yeah, it was when we had tacos last night, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Covered them in sriracha and I was like, who am I? This spicy girl now. I'm official spice girl.
Looked so good. I was because I had an idea of what I thought a cheeseburger taco would look like. And then you put the picture up and I was like, that is not what I expected. That was raw ground beef onto a tortilla that hadn't been cooked yet.
Yeah.
And I've made something like that before, but I put another tortilla on top and then I
quesadilla
fry
type.
it. Yeah. And then you'd done that, and then obviously they looked great, and Andy's little bearded self dancing while he ate it.
He was like, "Do you have to put those things of me on there?"
That was the best end to that video that it could have had.
His little slow-mo happy dance.
But yeah, always, I've loved spice since quite a young age. But I grew up in a house, my family is from the South, South United States, so very what you'd call soul food, gumbo, fried chicken, mashed potatoes, casseroles type thing.
Yeah.
But my parents hate spice. They would actually get mad if we didn't label food when we put it in the fridge, because there were a couple instances where my dad would try something that was in the fridge and we'd be in our room and he'd just hear, "David, Connor, what did you put in this?" And just screaming from the kitchen. He was like, "My mouth is on fire."
The whitest reaction.
Yeah. That you could possibly have. Black pepper for him is about as far as it goes. But I don't know. Food, I know there's certain people, like you see it with Andy, who, my father-in-law, who food for him is very much fuel. It's not like, "Oh, why don't I try this and try that?"
He eats to live.
Yeah, exactly.
We live to eat.
Which makes sense, because he's former bodybuilder, and from what I understand, I've watched a couple videos like Eddie Hall on that, where if you want to look like that, you basically have to destroy your relationship with food, because you're waking up at 4 a.m. to just carb load, and you're not even hungry, but you have to.
Is it foie gras? I can never
Oh God,
foie gras.
Yeah,
where they force feed.
Yeah,
geese.
I think it's geese or ducks. But yeah, it's basically the bird equivalent of veal, where the animal's not allowed to move. They force feed it really fatty, heavy stuff, and then the meat itself is just overly fatty. I've never eaten frogwa or frogwa. Frogwa. That's how you would say it, right? Frogwa. Actually, hold on,
I googled it recently. It would have been on my most recent search.
Frogwa. I know it's French.
I think it's foie gras, or is it foie gras? What content are we providing?
Foie gras. Ah, okay. Hold on. F-O-I-E. Guess who didn't spell that right? I'm just gonna play the proper pronunciation.
I'm on the edge of my seat.
Yeah. Here we go.
Foie gras. Foie.
So it even gives you F-W-A-A-G-R-A-A.
Foie gras.
Foie gras. Yeah. 30 seconds of that, and we don't eat it anyways. But yeah, don't really care for foie gras. We'll have to do an episode on that of sort of morally ambiguous food, veal, foie gras.
What's that one on Brooklyn Nine-Nine where they have to eat the bird under a sheet? So there's
it's actually, I was just gonna say that. It's funny you brought that up. There's one, I can't remember what it's called. It's something ortol, but it's like a bird. I can't remember what they do to it, but it's really not kind. And it's supposed to make the bird really tender or something like that. But they, you have to put a little sheet over your eyes, and that's the tradition for eating it, because you have to shield your eyes from the sins that you're committing or something like that. It's a very old dish, but it's you're supposed to cover your eyes and shield them from the sins that you're committing. So.
Maybe we won't have that.
No, we definitely won't be eating that. There's that. There's also, I think it's a Filipino dish called balut, which is they take an egg that's been fertilized. So there is a chick in it, and then they boil it.
No.
Boil it with the chick in there, and then you pop it open, and there's a little bit of feathers and everything. But it's still so young that you can just eat it whole. It's like soft shell crab. It's you can chew through the whole thing. It's supposed to be a delicacy, which is probably another episode that we'll do. Delicacy.
Like the stinky fish.
Yeah. Surströmming. I'm almost certainly mispronouncing that, but
we're not going to Google search another pronunciation.
No. We won't subject you to that.
So, do you remember when you first started getting interested in actually cooking, not just eating for energy? When did you start to show an interest in flavor profiles and things like that?
I've kind of always been sort of indoctrinated into it. I mean, weekends for me as a kid was, you start about 9-10 a.m. prepping stuff for the barbecue, and then you're barbecuing like 11 a.m. till probably 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and then football comes on and you watch football. So it was, we were always barbecuing. My dad was constantly getting me into that, and like, these are the best things to put on a marinade, and you marinate chicken. And like, my biggest fear as a kid was he'd let me do the barbecue after I became a certain age, but like, I was petrified of undercooking the chicken because he put the fear of God in me as like, it's got salmonella, you're gonna kill the whole family, here, have a go.
No pressure.
Like, so obviously he was like, making sure I wasn't gonna undercook it. But so I barbecuing, and then my mom, my dad worked, my mom was a stay-at-home mom, so she did all the dinners, and she would, she's a, what was it, Daughters of the American Revolution. Ooh. So she can trace her lineage back to the people who came over on the Mayflower, I think is what that is. Crikey. And so she cooks a lot of like very traditional, like Brunswick stew. I don't know if you've ever had Brunswick stew. It's it's visceral looking. It's like bright red, and then it's minced, I think, beef and lamb that has just been really minced down to the point where it's more like have you ever had like chili that's just really fine? It's like that, and then you've got like corn in it, so you've got like bright red beefy chili slop, and then these little bits of yellow corn, and it actually
sounds delightful.
It does look like something you've just brought up after a night out, but it tastes delicious. That, a big old piece of crusty bread with some butter, and it's just delicious. So yeah, I've kind of been exposed to both of those things, really. But I mean, for somebody like your British background, which is famous for boiled meat, boiled veg, if you can eat it, we'll boil it and put no seasoning on it. But then you've just come over today and brought me a jar of kimchi, which is one that you were almost eating just straight out of the jar.
Yeah, I did that thing where you eat so much of something for so long, and then the thought of eating it makes your stomach just fall out your mouth. It's
the equivalent of like when you play a song over and over, you find it like, and then you're like, oh, I hate this song.
Yeah, I went on like a mad hunt looking for kimchi, and ended up eating 1.5 jars in this. What? No, it was 2 jars in 1.5 weeks.
And we're not talking like a jar of jam. These are like
1.2 kilos.
Yeah. She bought them at Costco, so that should give you an idea. Of
I ate nearly 3 kilos of kimchi.
You had the best gut health in the entire Midlands.
My microbiome was elite.
She was no problem having a shit.
Nope.
Just straight through.
Just fell out.
So honestly, you just thought about it and it was gone.
Yeah. My body just reabsorbed it.
Yeah. You didn't even go to the bathroom. No. It was that efficient. You were like, I've not shat for 2 weeks and I feel great.
I just filter fed. Like a sponge.
You just turn into like, what is it? Is it photosynthesis? Where you just from the sun.
Mm-hmm. All thanks to kimchi.
All thanks to kimchi. But you've got a food-based Instagram, don't you?
I do have a food-based Instagram.
With quite a following.
I mean, in terms of like, compared to some people, it's nothing, but considering it is literally just pictures of food, I can't complain.
And with the utmost respect, you're essentially a nobody. And you've just casually got 10K.
Yeah, a nobody with 10K.
Which is insane. I mean, I don't even think I've seen 10,000 people at the same time.
No. I've never seen 10 people.
Jodi doesn't have many friends. But yeah, you've got a massive, I would say massive following for somebody who, I think the most follows I've ever had on something was my Twitch, and that was like 200. But it's not boiled veg. It's not like, here's cabbage and beans.
Yeah. I can't cope with having, silly to say because I ate nearly 3 kilos of kimchi, but I can't cope with having the same thing over and over again. Like people that, like we said about food being fuel, that doesn't register for me. Food is an experience for me. And I think experimenting with different flavours and textures and colours especially, like a plate of food has to look good. And if it doesn't look good, I'm just like, meh.
Well, I mean, that's what they say. You eat with your eyes first. And then I think as time's gone on, I've definitely gotten better about, like, even if it looks shit, I'm like, I'll give it a try. If it tastes good. But yeah, you definitely, something's got to look appealing and then you want to eat it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Did that start as like when you were younger? Or have you sort of just come into the food interest world?
So as a kid, I was always interested in cooking, like seeing what my mum was doing, but my mum despised a messy kitchen, and I am for sure a messy chef. I will use every area that I can, every pot, every pan, much to my partner's disgruntlement because he's the dishwasher.
Yeah, just dinner's going to be great. Good luck with this.
Yeah, and he'll go, oh, why do you use 2 pans for the same thing? And I'll be like, well, I've had to move it from here to here so that I can do this. So there's method to it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But, yeah, I don't care because I'm not doing the washing up. So I'll literally use every utensil, every pot, every bit of surface that we've got, all to make it look and taste good.
See, I do the cooking and the washing up, but that's mainly because if I let Meg into the kitchen, she'll move things about and not put them where I want them to be. And so, like, I came home from work the other day and she was like, bless her, she was really proud of herself, and she was like, oh, I'm cleaning the kitchen. And I was like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? And she was like, no, I'm cleaning the kitchen for you. You don't have to worry about it. I was like, no, I'm okay with doing that. Don't. And then I was looking around. I was like, why is the coffee tin over here? Why have you moved the cafeteria? Why is it over there? I just thought it looked nicer. So she's banned from the kitchen outside.
Messed with your food feng shui.
Yeah. She can go into the fridge and make a cup of tea, and that's what she's allowed to do.
And I think she's happy with that as well. She's happy with that balance that you've got. So Andy is an okay chef. He struggles sometimes with timings, but I don't think it's helped by the fact that I essentially took over the kitchen. So backstory, I used to follow a certain weight loss club, which I will not mention because I've got a lot of opinions about it now. But at the time, I was very particular about how we cooked things and the way that we did it. So I sort of took over the kitchen. And since then, it's just stayed that way. And then obviously we had the small friend. So I've just sort of remained in the kitchen. And we've got that good balance where I'll generally decide what we have to eat with some input from him. And the small friend will just now and then go, can we have Chinese? In fact, tonight he's demanded a Chinese, but he says a buy it Chinese.
A buy it Chinese.
Not
a fake away.
Not a fake away.
He's clear. He's been done too many times.
Yeah. So
I know this isn't from the takeaway. There's not enough MSG.
I went out a couple of weeks ago and Andy had made him and the small friend some fake away Chinese. And he set it down in front of him. And his response was, and when does the buy it one arrive?
Just unfiltered human thoughts.
Yeah, and do you know what? It looked really, really good, the one that Andy had made. Like, considering, like I say, he's not really in the kitchen very much now.
Yeah.
But
I feel like we're quite similar in that we both have willingly taken on, like, the full cooking duty. Oh, yeah, that looks really good. You got, like, noodles, chips... Looks like some chicken and then some fried rice.
Yeah.
When does the buy it one arrive?
He's bougie.
It's not coming in a styrofoam box.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like I've willingly done all the cooking because it's, it's like, oh, I have no problem doing that. I like making the new stuff, taking pictures of it. One of my favorite things to do is like a pantry clearer. Like, I almost find it more difficult to make up a recipe if I'm spoiled for choice. Yeah. Like, last weekend I went to the market, and I did have a meal that I was trying to make, which is gumbo. But you're presented with all these ingredients, and you think, like, what do I make with this? But if you're looking in your pantry and you've not done a shop for, like, 5 days, you're like, well, I've got a tin of tuna, 1 bell pepper, some sauces and seasonings, and, like, a stale baguette. And I'm just like, okay, I'll make a fish cake. And I did that the other day because we were, pinching pennies. We'd spent a little bit more over Christmas than we thought.
End of January.
Yeah, it's always tough. And so I was like, I'll see if I can make some fish cakes. They were absolutely banging. They were delicious. And then I did the thing like what you did with kimchi. We had fish cakes for like 4 days in a row. And then I was like, I gotta slow down now. Okay. I was actively buying tuna and letting bread go stale just so I could keep this like fetish of fish cakes going. Until I was like, okay, you know how to make them now. Stop. Make something else. So I've made something else.
I think that also comes with wanting to perfect a recipe. Because you'll make something and go, that was so good. And it's not like in a criticising way, but Andy will say, next time it would be really good if we were to do this. He says we.
We, yeah.
We.
Knowing full well.
Oh, me and Jodi make X, Y, and Z, and I'm like, who?
Sorry. Where were you? What were you doing?
In fact, he said it at work the other day. So, sidebar, my partner's a tattoo artist, and I was in having some work done. And he said, oh, we made these delicious burritos the other night. And I just sort of tilted my head and went, we? Just like, we are doing this tattoo?
Yeah.
And his workmate was like, yeah, I kind of don't feel like it's a we situation. I think it's a Jodi situation.
It's a Jodi made and we ate.
But yeah, it's nice to have those conversations after you've eaten with another person who appreciates food as much, where you can say, well, next time we'd probably add or take away this or cook this a little bit differently, like with courgettes, which was really random. Andy's not into courgettes at all.
Really?
I think it's because I've always just sort of cooked them as you would add like onions, peppers at the very start, not realising that actually an al dente courgette is actually so much better.
It's really nice.
And so I think we had Hello Fresh once, and I was like, oh shit, I forgot to add in the courgettes. So I just sort of dry fried them with a bit of salt in a griddle, and we were like, holy moly, like this is so much better.
Yeah.
Never adding courgettes.
Just accidentally stumble upon a better way to have them. We always grilled courgettes because one, we never called them courgettes in the US. They're called zucchini.
Oh yeah.
Just like when I first moved here, sidebar, I was trying to cook something, and I was desperately looking for coriander. But over there, we call it cilantro.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't find it for the life of me. I was at Tesco, and I asked the lady, I was like, where's your cilantro? Do you guys not have cilantro? And she was like, sorry, what? Cilantro? And I was like, yeah, cilantro. And Meg finally, she was off doing something else, and she walked up, and she was like, what's going on? I was like, they don't have cilantro here. What is this? She goes, cilantro. I was like, yeah, she goes, that's called coriander, David. So I was like, oh, okay. So I had to...
But say cilantro in a British accent.
Cilantro. I don't... How would you say it?
Cilantro. But when I
cilantro.
When I say it in an American accent because it sounds funnier. Cilantro.
Cilantro. Well, Meg, ever since we've been married, hasn't pronounced water in an English accent. She acted every single time. I think it started as like a piss take, and now she just calls it water. She's like, oh, can I have a glass of water? Like, she'll do the whole sentence in an American accent, to the point where I'm not even fazed by it anymore. She's just, for some reason, when she asks for water, she has to use an American accent now. But
it'd be very interesting to see how, if you and Megan had children, what their accent would organically sound like before they went out into the world.
See, we've had extended conversations about this, and we talk about it quite a bit, actually, because I've thought, like, when I go back home now, even my accent has changed to the point where, like, people back home think I sound like I'm from New Zealand. I get asked, like, oh, because Megan and I went back last summer, and we were going to a restaurant with my parents, and we were waiting for the table, and we got to talking to the people at the desk thing, whatever it's called, and she goes, oh, wow, where are you from? And Meg was like, oh, I'm from the UK, blah, blah, blah. And then I was talking to him, like, and are you from New Zealand? Or I was like, no, I'm from right down the road. It's like,
we probably went to school together.
Yeah. I was like, but I've moved over there and come back, and they were really shocked. I can't hear it. But
I've noticed. I think because we voice note a lot about food and podcasts.
You can tell why we've started a podcast.
Yeah. And you said something the other day, and your British accent has always been really exaggerated, as it should be, because that's not your native accent, but you said something in a mock British accent, but I remember saying that was the most British you've sounded.
I remember what you were talking about.
I think you might have just said water.
Yeah, I think I said, like, I hope that's all right, or something like that. And I was like, that's all right?
Yeah.
Or something like that.
It was
and
something like
you were
that.
like, that sounded so British.
And it's happened to Andy, though, because he's from Cambridge.
Yeah. Is he starting to get that Leicester?
Well, he's been in Leicester for, I'm going to say, like, it must be about 14 years, 15 years
So
now.
longer than he was, ever in Cambridge, I guess.
Almost. I think he came to Leicester when he was, like, 20, 21 or something.
Ah, right.
And he lived with someone from a part of Leicester that's quite a strong Leicester accent. And then, obviously, we lived together. We've been together 10 years in March. and his accent now, it's not as posh as it was when I first met him, because it was after grass, half past. Bath, yeah. And now, sometimes, the one that crops up the most is half past.
Yeah.
And then that's made small friend also start saying half past. And he's
right.
Leicester. He's Leicester, that's it.
Born and raised,
yeah. But, yeah, I've noticed a change in his accent just from us being together from when we first met. Because he'll like, a Leicester word is meh instead of me.
Yeah.
Like, oh, are you going to come with me?
With me, yeah.
And he'll sometimes now say it, and I'll be like, whoop, you've gone well, Leicester!
You dirty Midlander.
So, of any accent that you could start to like adopt, you've taken on Leicester.
See, I feel like it's good though, because it's a thick accent, but then I've spent most of my life in Texas, so that is quite a thick accent, and I'm hoping it won't be a case of, you know, you put them together and it's just some disgusting abomination, but instead it's like, you know, you see, you know, like, this is gonna be very shallow, but you ever see like a really attractive person and then you see like their parents and you're like, how have you created this beautiful specimen, and their parents look like, you know, 30-year-old shovels, and you just like
Every time I look in the mirror.
Yeah, I could tell you had thought of that response prior to me finishing that sentence. But yeah, I'm hoping our child will sound a little bit American. Meg has already said that she wants he or her, whatever, to have a to say certain words a certain way. So like we would always say like mama or I always grew up saying, because in the South you call your mom mommy and your dad daddy, and even I know it's a whole thing, but in the South, even when you get older, you still call your dad like, yeah, that's my daddy, and his daddy and their daddy. Like it's not.
I'm watching Ozark at the minute.
Yeah, so
Ruth is very daddy. Yeah,
and it's not like the problem is. Modern culture is ruined daddy now, because it's like, yes daddy, it's like some weird, BDSM daddy, but now
thing is, like, Megan's not got a strong, like, thick Leicester accent though. She seems quite well spoken. I don't know whether that's because she went to uni elsewhere for a time,
and she's very educated. Sidebar, my partner is getting her PhD, so she's spent a lot of time just with higher education people, and not that that's anything clever against Leicester, but most of them don't speak like, hey up me duck. So I reckon that's where she's got that from. But yeah, I didn't realize she was from. I didn't even realize that Leicester was an area that was seen as having like a really, what it appears to be, as most British people consider like a dirty accent, where it's like,
well, we're in the Midlands, aren't we? We're like smack bang in the middle of the UK.
At least you're not Birmingham.
True. No offense to the Brummies.
From Birmingham.
I'm from Birmingham. But I think because we sort of are in the middle, it's hard to sort of pick a specific area. Leicester is its own accent. Like North is. It's like drawn out slightly. South is a little bit more like this.
Yeah, almost Cockney. Or because I think with Americans we only know two English accents if we try to replicate it, which is either Cockney or posh. Yeah. So it's like, borders on pirate or like I speak the Queen's English. Yeah. But then when I feel like meeting so many British people, because the first thing they'll try and do when they talk to me is like an American accent. And the only ones that they know is either Texas or California. Yeah. It's like, hey, or it's like, howdy, how you doing? And so, it's just, I guess it's the popular culture that comes with it.
Yeah. I mean, that's completely off the food topic, isn't it?
Yeah. What we've been talking about accents. We're not even talking about food.
I think this first episode is sort of not necessarily a get to know us, but a bit of background, because it's always nice, I think, to know a little bit about the people that you're listening to.
Yeah, well, and we can make references to things that would then be made clear, instead of having to clarify, like, who Meg is, who Andy is. We just, Meg this, Meg that.
Yeah, I think if you were also from Leicester, it'd literally just be these two people from Leicester talking about X, Y, and Z, but like you say, it's good to have a little bit of reference.
Yeah, and we've kind of explained, like, there's no way he's from Leicester. Why does he sound like that? He says water. Everything's with a hard R. But we do love a hard R. in the
Like a
U.S.
pirate.
Yeah, well, you know, the racists seem to really latch on to that one as well, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, like where I grew up in the South was heavily influenced, like I said, by like soul food, but because of, unfortunately, you know, the slave trade in the South being what it was in that time, a lot of those people brought over like Creole.
Yeah.
So you get like quite spicy, you know, like Cajun food, Creole food is spicy. And it's a lot of, I was surprised to see a lot of it here because you've got, was it the Windrush generation that came over and essentially from similar regions. And so you've got, you know, I made at work the other day a, what was it? Okra soup. And it was basically gumbo. It was basically gumbo. I couldn't believe it. I was like, this is essentially what I've had at home my whole life. But it was some traditional dish from like either Nigeria or Ghana.
I was going to say you work with people like some non-British people, don't you?
Yeah. So I'm a chef, but I work for a children's home. So a lot of the people that I work with, and you see it a lot in the care industry in general, is people from the Windrush generation. I think I work with people from like 4 different African countries, but it's brilliant. I mean, they have fantastic food, and they're the only people who can withstand any sort of meaningful spice, because everybody else just wants like, oh, Bajan, and boiled, and they're like, this isn't spicy enough. So.
With just a pinch of salt.
Yeah, a pinch of salt and some vinegar. That's your seasoning over here.
Yeah. Hold on a minute. Let's just talk about how Americans love wet food. Wet sandwiches.
I didn't realize that until I moved over here, but we do like a wet sandwich with lots of sauce. And then some sandwiches we've thought like it's not wet enough, we'll give you something to dip it in. Like there's a New York style one, I think, or a French style, but you dip it in like a jus, and it's so good though.
I bet the bib industry is peak in America.
That, and people go through loads of t-shirts. But it's like, you know, for people like Meg, who I call texturally challenged.
Yep. Got one of them at home.
Yeah, her worst nightmare, and even just talking about it makes her start heaving.
Let me guess,
like,
wet bread.
Wet bread, exactly. Dead on. Wet bread. If I just start talking about wet bread, she starts, and she just, she can't deal with it. And the concept of taking a sandwich and dipping it into, like, jus is just mind-blowing to her. And I used to, when I was little, one of my favorite things... Oh. Pause. Right, welcome back. Sorry about that. I had a delivery, which I was expecting. That was Warwick. He made a brief appearance. Don't want to hear you again, Warwick. Not that we don't like your bark.
Calm your farm.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say calm your fart.
That too.
He does fart, actually. He's a very smelly boy. What were we just saying?
Bacon and wet bread.
Yeah, wet bread.
I wonder if it comes back from, like, as kids, British people, if it was just, like, fair weather, you'd just go and feed the ducks. And the bread, watching the bread, like, absorb the water, I can see where it's coming from, because then it just sort of... If you can see what I'm doing, I'm being a human wet bread.
A wave.
Yeah, and it just sort of floats along the top and goes all goopy and then sort of falls apart. Sorry, Megan, if you're going to listen to this.
Yeah.
There's going to be some gipping.
You're just going to have to skip ahead. But, like, what I used to do as a kid, and I still do it every now and again when I'm craving just something a bit sweet, is I'd make, like, a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, classic, on just... you know, Wonder Bread, the whitest, most processed flour you can find.
Just bleach powder.
Yeah, bleach powder. And, you know, cut it in half. And then you pour yourself a nice cold glass of milk. And you dip the sandwich into the milk. And then you eat it. And it's so good. Because peanut butter, I mean, everybody's probably had a bit of peanut butter. It makes your mouth really dry. But you dip it in there and the bread soaks up the milk and it combats it really nicely. And the face that Jodi's now making is one of anguish and pain.
I feel like a Renaissance painting.
But it's so good. It's so good. It's incredibly disgusting sounding.
I think we're going to have an episode where one of us brings an item that the other one's probably never tried or wanted to try.
Yeah.
And then we try it. And
yeah. Well, like,
not be friends anymore.
like something I grew up with and I love now is like smoked oysters in a tin.
Oh, I've never had an oyster.
Oh,
I have, sorry, tell a lie. I had an oyster. I did it wrong, so I didn't have any more.
Right.
I tried to like grill them with some breadcrumbs, but it just went completely wrong.
Yeah, oysters. Like when I took Meg back to like New Orleans, I was like, look, I know you're not gonna like oysters, but you have to have one. And these are like proper raw oysters on the half shell. Like we'd gone out for dinner, and I can go through like 4 dozen in a sitting. You know, like you give me hot sauce, some lemons, and a beer, and I will mow through raw oysters.
Are they filling?
What? Oysters?
Yeah. Like, do you get full up?
Uh,
or is it like eating crisps?
You do get full up, yeah, because you're eating, but it is very similar to crisps. Because they're usually quite small, you can get big ones, but they're incredibly expensive. You can go through a lot. So it feels like you're eating a load, but in reality, you're not eating that much.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'd sit there, and I was like, you have to try one oyster on the half shell. Just because it's almost like a rite of passage. It's like, you can say you've done it. It's a huge part of this region. And she had it and reacted exactly how I thought she would. Put it in her mouth. Immediately started stuffing crackers in her mouth to like try and get rid of it. And then ate it. But that was it. I was like, you had one. You've done it now. You can say you've had an oyster on the half shell.
Trying to override the oyster with a safe texture.
Yeah.
Dry.
That's exactly what it is. And when I cook meals for her, I have to... Depending on what it is, like last night we had, I did grilled chicken outside, which in the UK wintertime I know is absurd for most people here, but my village has basically lost all gas, so we have no ability to cook, and I don't need another excuse to barbecue, so we did grilled chicken over a salad, and I had to make just for her croutons so she could have what she actually does call a safe texture to go with it. Whereas I will shovel anything into my mouth. I don't have any problems with that.
I think the more texture, the better. If you've got just one texture, that becomes very boring.
Yes.
Personally, as a non-texture bothered person. So our small friend, we're going to name Terry for anonymity.
What is that? Is it Nemo, where he's like, I live in an anonymity. All right, kid, don't hurt yourself.
So, for my child's privacy, he's called Terry for this podcast. And Terry is also, he's 5 years old, he's got some sensory aversion to texture. He will not have anything wet.
Really?
And when I say nothing, he doesn't even drink a drink unless it's got a straw.
Right.
Because I don't think he likes that, like, food around the mouth.
He's a very dry and crispy boy.
Yeah, he tried ketchup once. Like, I know most children his age just drink ketchup. That's all they live on.
Ketchup over everything.
But he tried ketchup one time in a Hollywood bowl and he gipped for a little bit and that's it. He's like, no, I don't like ketchup anymore. However, if he has a McDonald's breakfast, he'll have the sausage and pancakes and he smashes the sausage into the syrup all over the place. And that's like the stickiest liquid. So maybe
I wonder, does it need to be a
selective.
hot... Is it warm? Is that what it is? But that is weird. Also... Genuine moment here. What does gip mean? I've not heard
Heave.
That. Oh, right. Okay.
Get the gips.
Gip. Right.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I was like, I'll let you finish your sentence. And through context, I figured it was something like that, but I could no idea.
Gets the gips. And he'll say, I'm gonna gip.
I'm gonna gip. I just think of like, gip for some reason makes me think of a fish.
Yeah.
Just like a fishy noise, like a...
I've never known a fish to snort, but I'd like to meet.
I can't do the... Yeah, there it is. Anyways, that was entertaining.
Some free ASMR for you.
Yeah. But yeah, I've never had a problem with texture. I thoroughly enjoy, like I was saying, smoked oysters in a tin, which texturally are very different to raw oysters because they almost go like dense. I'm trying to think what it's most similar to. It's almost like those sweets where they're like almost like foam. Is it the foam shrimp?
Yeah.
It's similar to texture like that almost, but just a little bit more chewy. And I know I'm doing a great job of selling this to everybody, but smoked oysters on a cracker.
What cracker? Tell me about the cracker.
It could be any sort of cracker. You could do like a water biscuit, but we always used Ritz crackers, the ones that are like really buttery and salty.
That like you wouldn't want to touch your face with one.
With an oyster?
With a Ritz cracker. I always feel like after I've touched one of them, I'm like, must wash my hands.
Oh yeah, well you would have to with oysters as well, because you open the tin and it is an immediate smell of just not unpleasant fishiness, but you know there's seafood somewhere when you open a tin of oysters.
Have you been to Skegness yet?
I have not. I'm familiar with it. That's the seaside. What do you guys call it? Skeggy.
Skeg Vegas.
Skeg Vegas.
Yeah, Leicester by the Sea.
Is it just everything smells like seafood?
It's just you get there and it's just like...
Smack in the mouth.
Yeah, here's some salt water that also has shit in it.
So it's not like a pleasant seaside.
No.
Like, oh, I've been to Whitby and had fish and chips.
No, nothing like Whitby.
That's a shame.
Nothing like Whitby.
It's more like, this is a drain that leads to the ocean sort of smell.
Yeah.
Right.
Like if you were to sweep the bottom of a fish tank.
Oh, God, I do know what that smell is. Meg, for like the first year we were together, had a fish, which I cared for. And it was, she went, oh, can you clean the tank after it gets all green and cloudy? And it was just the most disgusting smell. And all of the rocks at the bottom were full of fish shit.
Yeah.
And it smells exactly like what you'd think fish shit would smell like. Incredibly unpleasant.
Fishy sewage.
But, yeah, oysters. They, smoked oysters. And we would open it and my mom would get so mad when she knew that we were having oysters. Because my dad loves smoked oysters. And he's the reason we got into it. And she hates them. And she, even when, because after you open the tin, you have like the oil in the bottom. And she would make us put it in like a Ziploc bag. And then put that Ziploc bag in another Ziploc bag before we threw it away. You weren't allowed to just throw the tin away. Like we've just touched...
Screw the environment.
Like,
We've got to double bag it.
Oh God, that's a whole nother episode about the amount of paper plates and styrofoam plates I personally am responsible for having used is probably in and of itself an environmental disaster. But you guys don't do that over here. Nobody really...
No.
We will buy disposable plates for use a week. Like it's like you just have disposable plates.
Like you'd buy kitchen roll?
Yeah, exactly. And you grab and then if you're having like a proper fancy meal, then you use like the ceramic plates. But for every day, like, oh, I'm just going to get some lunch, paper plate.
That's
in the bin.
Mad.
Meg shut that down immediately.
Yeah, paper plates. We've got a stack of paper plates I think I bought for Terry's like third birthday. And they're still there because you'll only use one each. And when you guys came around for bonfire night, I was like, right, there's enough for one each.
Yeah,
you have to use the same paper plate.
Yeah, I immediately threw mine away and then realized there were no more.
That's it now. You just got to hold a jacket potato.
Cup your hands with like. That's like when you, when you get caught out, you're walking your dog, you don't have any poo bags, you just use like a thin napkin and you just put the food in your hand and you can feel it, the wetness going through.
Yep.
But yeah, we don't exactly think about the environment. I have been converted now. We use normal plates and Meg does let me use kitchen roll as long as it's post-consumer product.
Can I just side note, David's currently drinking a bottle of water that is a plastic bottle of water in his house.
But it's sparkling water.
That makes it fancy. He's a fancy boy.
I used to make fun of people who drank sparkling water because I thought, this is ridiculous. It's just soda without any of the flavor.
It's just horrid electric juice.
Meg calls it spicy water.
Yeah, it's awful.
I love it so much to the point where I think I might have an addiction.
I used to work in a bar, so soda water was on tap.
It's hilarious you've said that is where it started.
Hate it.
Because actually, side note, I used to work for your mom. She used to run a pub, and she hired me as a chef. My first chefing job.
Congrats.
What
a way to start.
Yeah, really. And I can absolutely attest to the fact that she likes a clean kitchen.
She does. Mummy loves a clean kitchen.
Yeah, and documentation about said clean kitchen. The amount of times she would have a go at me.
Yeah, but we did get a five star.
We did get a 5-star, and it's on my resume.
Yep.
But that was the only free drink I was allocated. Obviously, they weren't going to give me like, oh, here's free beer or some free Pepsi. But because the soda water was on tap and it didn't cost them anything, that was all I got. And that was about the time that I started getting into intermittent fasting. And it, just kind of fills you up. And ever since then, I just absolutely love it. Something about the bubbles. And
something about the bubbles.
I walked home yesterday getting on the bus with you get at Aldi like the 2-liter bottles of sparkling water, and I was manhandling one of those.
Cradling
I'm
your
on
soda
the bus,
water, baby.
2 hands on the bus, like drinking a thing of soda water, and it was so good. People were looking at me weird, and
Did it give you like really tummy burpy?
You do burp, yeah, because the bubbles. But I mean, it's I don't know. It's something about you. I can't explain it because I understand it's absurd. You're not getting anything out of it. It's just water that is a bit. Although, actually, I say that I recently found out you get loads of good minerals in soda water. I don't know why.
Isn't it just mineral water, like the same as still water?
Basically, so I'm getting like calcium, magnesium, potassium, sodium chloride. Sodium chloride, I think, is bad together, but separately they're good. Sulfate, nitrate, fluoride, which I know a lot of people question that. But yeah, so I'm getting minerals and stuff, but I typically I don't eat breakfast now.
You're getting your minerals in bubble form.
Yeah, I mean, up until about 1 o'clock, I am coffee and water. Whether it's sparkling or just still, I will just drink coffee and water. And not, it started as like intermittent fasting, because like when I moved over here, I was a bit more of a round boy. And I think that was down to the fact that where I grew up in the South, heavy sodium, lots of
that
butter.
That photo that you showed me the other day, that's sodium swell.
Yeah. I look like I'd just been stung by a large bee. And so...
Yeah, because you're not Fathead Dave so much now. Maybe
I'm
that's
not.
it. You've unswole
yeah.
from the America.
I've just been carrying around like 2 kg of water weight my whole life, and I've just gotten rid of it. But now I don't crave breakfast, to the point where if like we've gone out for breakfast with family, or we'll go around to Meg's parents, and they always have like breakfast on a Sunday.
Very British.
To the point where I'm like, I'll eat breakfast and I feel horrible afterwards. And I just don't crave it. Like I'm hungry at about lunch. I'm good with coffee. I'm good with water up until then.
See, I had breakfast today at a time I would never usually eat breakfast, because I knew I was coming here. And if I was here from till about 1 o'clock, I would be a twat. You'd be like, oh my God, I'm never doing that again, Megan. She was awful. She was so grumpy.
just countering everything I say with, I don't believe that.
No, I don't agree. Sorry.
Don't agree.
Yeah, she was horrible. She couldn't focus.
It's like, what is it? Never go grocery shopping hungry? Which I've absolutely done before, and every single time I remember why that's a saying.
Yeah. Your trolley is 75% snack.
Yeah.
25% meat and some confused veg that you've never had before.
You spend way more than you should, and when you get home, you eat about half of it that you've just purchased just because you're ravenous,
right,
snacking while you're cooking your dinner.
Yeah.
And then you've got fuck all to show for it.
You're like, what's for dinner?
Great, I've spent 80 quid and I've only got about 40 quid's worth of food left.
And I've given myself diabetes.
Yeah, and I've just eaten a bag of Doritos to myself. But, no, I've just lost that sentence. I started that sentence and it's gone now. Oh, sparkling water. Yeah. I do like sparkling water. I'm not sure why.
So you survive between waking up and breaking your fast at 1 o'clock-ish?
See, I wouldn't even, I mean, I guess technically it's fasting, but I don't even see it as fasting now. It's just, and I hate the words that I'm about to say because it sounds so just LA kitsch, but it's more of just like a lifestyle now.
No,
which
I
is
know
like,
exactly what you mean.
Like, it's just, I don't even consciously think about it. I'll wake up in the morning, down like 4 liters of coffee, because I love coffee.
He loves his poo juice.
I do. Oh God, you're not wrong. And it almost to where before I'd leave for work, because I have to get the bus in the morning. So my work, I started about 7 a.m. But because of public transport and where we live, I have to be up at about 5:30 in the morning.
Right.
And so I started making myself a cup of coffee to have in the morning on the bus in the way to work. But because the bus trip is about an hour, I would just, the end of the bus trip, I'm like waddling up to work because I'm about to shit myself.
Clench them cheeks,
Yeah,
David.
I don't do it anymore.
No.
I wait until I get to work to have coffee, because if I do before that, I'm crying with the need to poo. And the bus station near us, the bathrooms are about as manky as you would expect from a bus station.
Yep.
And like there's 4 stalls in the men's bathroom. I realize it's a food podcast and we're talking about bathrooms, but
Look, we're all people, and the end result of food is poo. So.
everybody poops except for girls.
Yeah.
And so the bathroom has 4 stalls. 3 of those stalls don't have a door.
Is this
2 of those bathrooms, 2 of those toilets are removed from the ground. So there's really only like one option, and it's usually being used by some coke/meth head. So that was not going to happen in there. I could not poop in peace.
You need a peace poop.
Well, it's one of my favorite things at work. I am the only one with a dedicated bathroom. I have my own bathroom, and I'm the only one with the key to it. Mostly because, as the chef, you have to change into like your chef's clothes, which I don't all the time. But I still have my own dedicated room, which is it is one of my favorite things in my life. Just like go in there, have like a 20-minute session in the morning after I've had my coffee, and it's just peaceful. It's a good way to start your day. Healthy, I would say.
Yeah.
Healthy.
So David starts his day with spicy water and poo juice.
Spicy water, poo juice, and a 20-minute sit. And it's just, you're in the right frame of mind to start preparing food for people.
See, I normally sort of eat breakfast around 11:30, depending on what I'm doing, because I work nights at my job. So I'm at home in the daytime. So I generally will eat once I've sent Terry off to school and Andy's gone off to work. And I'll sort of do a bit of life admin, tidy up from the morning's hecticness. And then I'll be like, right, it's me time. Like, me time is prepping myself a meal, sitting down peacefully. No one's asking me for anything. And I'm like, right, here's me focusing on what I'm going to eat. And I go extra because I'm the only one there.
Yeah. Why wouldn't you? It's a bit of self-care.
Yeah.
I do that like on the weekend because I have to wake up quite early during the week. Even when I don't have to be up early, I'm still up by like 7. Like waking up at 7 a.m. sleeping in for me. Whether I want to or not, my body just wakes up. So Meg will typically sleep till about 9:10:30 if I don't go wake her up. But I'll come downstairs, make myself a cup of coffee. I'll usually put on like some sort of Leeds podcast or something and just like listen to the football podcast. I've got like my coffee, and then I'm just like, updating admin stuff, maybe doing some emails or something like that. And it's just, it's quiet. Meg doesn't need anything. And then about, 9 o'clock, I'll make her a cup of tea and then take that up to her. But yeah, you gotta have that you time, bit of, what is it, mental health? Mental health?
It's like glimmers. Have you heard of glimmers? It's like the opposite of triggers.
I've not, but I love that. Glimmers.
So you have to think of glimmers, and one of your glimmers is your spicy water.
Spicy water. Right, should we draw this to an end? Because I think we're about an hour, 51 minutes.
First one went well.
Yeah, first one. What do you think? First time either of us have ever done a podcast.
Yeah, I mean, we are professional voice noters. When we were starting to talk about this podcast, I think it was just before Christmas.
Yeah.
And I've got a fun bit of information that I don't think I included in the notes that I sent you. So, we started talking about it. It was mid-December, I think it was.
Yeah.
Because we would just talk back and forth about food, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
And we were like I think you said, I'd love to do a podcast, and I was like, David, I would absolutely love to do a podcast. Yeah. And then it's just sort of organically grown from there, and here we are now.
2 months, 3 months in planning.
Yeah, and I've got a note at the bottom of my notes that says, whilst ironing out the details, David was trying to do a voice note, but had asked me to bear with him as he had a mouthful of breaded crispy shrimp at 11:20 in the evening.
Yes.
And I think you were like, I about choked on my crispy shrimp.
Yeah, that was just before Christmas. I think it was like a Friday or something, and Megan and I had gone out for drinks with some of her friends or something, so I was a bit buzzing, and I had gone to the Co-op, and they had, in the reduced section, the Christmas... they do those like Christmas snack things if you're going to do a buffet. And it was coconut crispy shrimp. And I just remember thinking like, that is all I want to eat. And I got like 4 packages and then did them all in the oven and then realized like I had nothing to eat them with. So I was like, don't care. Just a giant bowl. And it was genuinely, I was eating crispy shrimp as you would eat popcorn. And it was delicious, and I don't regret a thing. But I did almost choke on some.
Yeah.
Because they were very dry.
And I said something in my voice note, and I think you laughed.
Yeah.
You were like, you said something that made me laugh.
And then I inhaled it like a crumb, and I was like, nope, I'm dying. And I just had to quickly
I thought you said no, bum time.
Bum time, I've shat myself.
What a way to go.
Yeah, but no, I think this has gone quite well. I think we're going to try... Our schedule is probably going to allow 2 to 3 a month, but this is a first for us, so that may change.
Yeah.
The quality hopefully will only get better. We are working with one mic that is currently sat on an upside down gumbo pot.
Yeah, I'm going to take a photo so that we can just...
We'll take a picture.
A lovely reflection.
Yeah. Just remember our first podcast. And we're sat at my computer desk, so this is not by any means a professional setup. I think eventually we do want to have like our own mics and possibly do a video as well. So like when we're doing gestures or like miming something, you kind of get the context of what's happening. But
for sure.
Yeah. I think we'll go ahead and end this one.
Yeah.
So.
Congratulations,
podcast buddy.
Oh, I thought we were going to high five.
I was going to handshake.
Let's do it.
This is why we need the video. That was the most awkward exchange we could have had.
Let's just do a high five to end it. See ya.
See ya.